U.S. Foods proudly presents Offset with Kinger and the Big Man. Alongside the Big Man, that's Jake Caulfield. I'm Rob King, and our guest is Steven Brault, our buddy that all of us here working for Fenway Sports Group, right? In one fashion or another at Sportsnet Pittsburgh here in town. I want to thank U.S. Foods, our sponsor. Also want to thank North Park Lounge in Cranberry for hosting us. Next time on the Big Man Sandwich for you, right? I know you got to leave after this, but you're gonna have. You talked about having a Big Man Sandwich.
I did. And I'm also kind of that's a great nickname, the Big Man. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
I wish you only get that from a very specific guy. You are the big man,
right?
Either you're that, or you're like the really smart guy.
Yeah,
you're not the small guy,
like a guy named Curly who's bald, right? Yeah, right. I also want to thank One Team Media for putting this production together with us. This is part 2 of our conversation with Steven. I talked about at the end of the last conversation, the 16, 17, 18 expectations, a little bit of the rebuild. You also did something that was very strange for everybody involved. You pitched with 0 fans.
I did.
During the COVID year. What was that like?
It was strange. It's hard to really describe it because when it comes down to it, it didn't matter if there were fans there or not once the competition started because it was real. The stats counted. So once the gameplay started, it was fine. But 2 things that I really remember that year. One, before Derek Holland, he was on our team that year. Before he even made a start, we were in St. Louis, and we were down the first baseline because we were sitting in the stands at the beginning of COVID. And like the first inning, the umpire called a ball or a strike, and Derek Holland just stood up and goes, "That's a ball." And the umpire just goes, "You're out of here." And we were all like, "You just get thrown out?" So he got thrown out from the stands after only saying that's a ball.
I remember.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The second thing was I do remember that one time in Chicago, the sound cut off because they pumped in crowd noise so that it wasn't completely silent in the stadium. And one time I was like about to start my windup against the White Sox, and the sound cut out, and it just got really eerie and confusing for a second. So I had to step off and collect myself for a second. It was unnerving. It was very weird.
Rob, is that very similar like when we're on the golf course and there's a mower behind you, and I'd rather have the noise than have them pull behind you, shut the engine off.
Right, if they stop in the middle of it, or if they backfired in the middle of your swing, either one's going.
Don't shut the mower down.
So
Same thing.
You got hurt, right? But even before you got hurt, the Pirates are experimenting with you as an outfielder. Were you excited about that prospect?
Oh yeah, I got to hit enough. Hurdle started using me as pinch hitter in 19, and I did pretty well. And so going into that offseason, we have our exit meetings every year. You have it with the GM, the manager, and the pitching coach, let's say, if you're a pitcher. And so they're all sitting in there, and they told me, "Hey, we're thinking about bringing you back next year as a pitcher, reliever probably, but a part-time outfielder. Use you as a 4th outfielder, pinch hitting, pinch running," which I was already doing as well. And I was stoked. It was awesome. And then unfortunately, both those guys got let go, or all 3 of those guys got let go. And so come the next season, and then, COVID happened and I got hurt. And there's just a bunch of factors that made it not happen. But I do remember I said to a reporter one time, they asked me about Clint Hurdle being let go. And I basically said, yeah, it's probably because he was going to turn me into an outfielder. And he saw that article, and luckily he thought it was funny because it's clearly meant as a joke, but still,
So, Jay, did they ever ask you about playing defense? Or were you always
No. Sometimes in practice or whatever, because I did when I was in North Dakota, I was a defenseman, and then whenever you could work it up. But that is a tougher. You're the last line. If I make a mistake, because my experience in hockey, I didn't have the depth. Didn't play as much.
Right.
Until I played much later in life. So you could, if you made a mistake up front as a forward, you can get covered up by a defenseman.
Right.
If you're a defenseman in blue line and you make a mistake there, your last line now is a goaltender. So it's an easier way to learn the game at the NHL level up front and forward. But in practices and stuff, I'd be on the blue line. I'd take rushes and stuff. I think it's great for anybody to play. Just like you said, you're in the field. You have a perception of, you see the game from the back end when you go back and pick up a puck and you want to move it up versus a forward always attacking. I think there's a good to it, but it's such a fine line in the NHL. That's why you say harder for defensemen in the NHL to come out early. If you can do it at a young age, pretty special player on the blue line. Forwards, they can hide you a little bit if you make a few mistakes.
So, Steven, injury cost you your major league career.
Yeah.
Correct? But you wanted to come back as an outfielder, so you wound up playing independent ball. We were talking beforehand off camera. Like, the difference is, what was your per diem in independent ball?
I think $15 a day.
And what was it in the majors?
$125 a day.
So
A little slightly different.
you're trying to keep the dream alive. What made you want to keep going?
I just wasn't done yet. You know, I'd gotten hurt, and I'd gotten hurt so many times at that point that even I had a great offseason. I threw for probably 20 teams. I threw at multiple different spring training facilities in Arizona, 4 teams, and I was dominating. I was throwing 94, 95. I had a new pitch. I developed a sweeper because everybody was doing that, and it really worked for me. And it didn't matter. Everybody would talk to me. They'd talk to my agent, and they'd say, "Okay, we're going to go look at the medicals, make sure that it's something that we're okay with." And then I would get a response back 2 days later that was basically, "We're not okay with the medicals." And so once I realized that was just not going to happen, I actually went to independent ball to try to show that I could stay healthy for a prolonged period of time, because then I knew I would go back. I would get signed back if I could just prove that I could stay healthy. But I got hurt before the season even started out in independent ball. And so that's when I was like, I came all the way out to Maryland. I moved my wife out there with me. We drove across the country. I'm not just going to give up right now. So I asked my manager if he'd let me try switching to being a position player, and he did. He was very amenable to it. It was awesome. I did sacrifice some of my monthly salary. I went from $1,800 a month to $1,300 a month, because that's the big bucks in independent ball. That's per month only for the summer while you're playing, by the way. Not a lot of money in independent ball.
But
Yeah.
what was the injury that was the one that took you down? I mean, if you look at your career and said, "This is what did it to me," which injury might have been the worst
I
one?
tore my lat. And everything after that was just more problems stemming from that same thing. It's basically, if you get a surgery, then you're never going to throw as hard again. So nobody who gets a surgery and a fully torn lat comes back to the major leagues, because you lose the zip that you've had that makes your fastball different. So I tried not to get the surgery, and try to come back. And I would basically go a month of being healthy, and then I'd be injured, and I'd rehab for 4 months, and then I had a month of being healthy. It was miserable. I did that for 2.5 years, and I was done.
For most guys, players who wind up either in independent ball, Jay, you were in Kalamazoo at the end of your career, just trying to keep the dream alive. I mean, basically.
Yeah, you have. I don't think you ever want to get, I think age, if you took age out of everybody's equation, right? Number one, if nobody saw what Steven's age was, and outside of the injury, like, that's a tough one to get by. Like, for me with my neck in football, that's it. But if you're healthy and you feel you can still play, if you can just wipe off the 29 or the 30, get it out. Everybody comes into camp the same way, but they don't know your age. I think all guys feel they can still play the game.
Yeah.
When it starts to hit you, though, where you're realizing, I don't have the same step to get in on a forecheck or make a hit. That's when you start to realize it. But you got to take it to the last level. I mean, to your last ditch effort, because you don't want to be the guy that goes, "Well, if I only tried to do it one more time." I think not even who can walk out on their own terms, right? Not many people, right? So while you have a chance and you feel like you're still healthy enough to try and do it, you got to keep pushing.
I think that's true for almost every athlete, whether you're professional athletes, Division III athlete, high school athlete. The only reason you stop playing is because nobody wants you to play.
Somebody tells you.
That's basically, that's kind of the end of the line. So,
I want to have one with
yeah, go ahead.
Steve, our per diem in the International League was $5 a day, and it was $10 in the American League, or maybe $20, and in the NHL it was like $100. So you really do know, not only when you go to the minors or you're riding in buses and no longer in planes and 5-star hotels, you're at La Quinta's, you're on a bus and you're carrying your own equipment, and you get $5 a day to go buy a burger. Truly a wake up. If you've been in the NHL and you go back down,
It's tough.
It's a grind.
In independent ball, I lived with 7 people in a house. So it was 3 couples and an extra guy, 3 dogs and a baby. It's like a sitcom show. We're all old dudes still trying to play baseball, looking at each other like, what the hell are we doing here?
That's after you've been in
the
show, you've been there,
right.
done it. Yeah, it's so different.
So both you guys transitioned into broadcasting. Now, Steven, you got a background as a performer we haven't even talked about. When did you start, before we get to broadcasting, when did you start performing? And I know you're still doing things on occasion. Do you still have a desire to be a performer? Could you see yourself transitioning to that?
You know, if it's kind of funny, I always thought performance could be something that I would go into. I thought I was going to in college because I didn't think I was going to get drafted. But then now I think I see it as more of a hobby, something I enjoy doing. I don't know if I would be able to put the work in to start at the bottom and work your way up to the top. It's the same thing as playing a sport. You know, there's luck involved, obviously a lot of skill and practice, but I would have to start at the bottom rung, you know, and I don't really want to do that again.
Lydia's already done that.
Exactly. Lydia's done that. So, you know, as I go forward, like, for example, I'm doing I'm emceeing and singing at a charity gala for the Pittsburgh Youth Chorus on June 18th. And so I'm getting ready for that now. And I'm rehearsing in the car and at home and, you know, when I have time off, to make sure that I don't sound like an idiot when I go up there and sing. But it is definitely still something that I try to, you know, be involved with. And as I've been in Pittsburgh more, I've tried to make it known to the powers that be that I want to try to get involved in as many music programs as possible. So I went and did a master class at Lincoln Park Performing School, School of Performing Arts a few weeks ago, which was amazing. And now I'm going to do this gala. So I'm really looking forward to it. Just trying to, you know, branch that out. I love performing almost as much as I love baseball. It's a close second.
How about the national anthems, which I think is amazing to do? I mean, so how was your feel? We talked about what it's like when we both play. You step onto the field, you step into a game. What's that feeling like?
It was very similar.
Yeah,
you know,
I get it.
I knew the main thing was I didn't want to screw up because I knew if I did, it would become this big story about this idiot who went and tried to sing the national anthem in uniform and messed it up, you know? So I just didn't want to mess it up. But that was another Clint Hurdle thing. I asked him if he would allow me to do it. And he said yes. And it was very nice of him to let me do it. No hesitation either. He was just like, oh yeah, just not on the day you're pitching, you know, something like that. So yeah, it was great, but it was very nerve wracking for sure.
Okay, so your sound when you're singing and you're in a stadium, different. You know, the sound is it coming across to you? Do you hear the music right or what?
Well, there's no music, right? It's fully a cappella, but also it's about almost a full second delay that you hear yourself. Right. So it's easy that's why a lot of people sing it really slowly. I don't think a lot of people know that. People sing slowly because when you sing it, you start to hear yourself and you wait for yourself to finish. And so then you keep slowing yourself down, and it's hard to catch back up to speed once you start doing that.
There was I can imagine what that would be like. So you see all these events. There was a guy when we were in our first Stanley Cup here, Kevin Siemens his attention span was so tiny, right? Because we all had the same thing, but B. Taylor, who was one of the best.
Oh, great voice. Oh, my goodness.
He's such a great musician from our area and, you know, passed away a number of years ago, but a wonderful guy. But he was singing the national anthem on, I forget what game it was during the finals. And he went, it was a great rendition of it, but he went a little longer and Kevin Stevens couldn't stand it. He couldn't take it anymore. He started jumping the gun, like, if you will, because everybody's so amped up. Like you're sitting there, and he did such a great job. And it was and B. Taylor never forgot that. I mean, people, they let him know, like, hey, it was a little too long, but he did such a wonderful version, such a great singer. But I can imagine the delay, what a delay would be like, and what it does to you.
Yeah. And by the way, when the word "oh" to begin the anthem has like 7 syllables, whoa, and I'm like, okay, first pitch now it's 7:11. It's gonna be 3 minutes later.
Exactly.
It's but yeah, I didn't know that was part of it and involved in it. And it, by the way, not an easy song to sing.
No,
the range is all over the place.
It's got a full octave jump. Anytime you got a full octave jump in a song, it's gonna be challenging.
Well, you've nailed it though.
Great
job.
Thank you.
You've nailed it. So I want to ask you guys both, because you guys both made the transition from player to broadcaster. Was it something that you always wanted to do? And I think there's other things you'd like to do too, but was just something you always wanted to do?
Yes. I always knew. You know, it's funny when you watch The Sandlot as a kid and you see all the guys that become Major League Baseball player, you know, Benny the Jet becomes a Major League Baseball player, and then the main kid becomes the broadcaster. And when I was a kid, I would think, I would do either of those. I'll take either one, really. And I listened to broadcasts all the time growing up. I loved it, but I never really thought about doing it as a career until I started playing Major League Baseball. And once you get there, and it's just so magical being around it, and I knew that I wanted to stay around the game. And to be honest with you, coaching sounds like a lot of work. Broadcasting is a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but coaching, you have the worst hours I could possibly imagine. I mean, players are there. So let's say players are in the field for 10 hours a day. I mean, coaches are there for at least 12. You're there all day, every day. And I knew that my performance background was something I could use in the broadcasting. And so it felt more like a natural fit for me. And I just jumped right in. I just did everything I could to get as much work as possible immediately. I didn't take any time off after I was done playing. I just hopped right into it and hounded the guys with the Pirates and Sportsnet Pittsburgh until they gave me a job. And it worked. Yes.
Jay, how about you?
Well, first of all, I think the same thing on the coaching side. If you wanted to go that route, I think I was, even if I would have thought that, I was tired of being, I don't want to chase, you're a part of a coaching staff. You might do a great job and your head coach gets fired and you're part of the staff that's gone. Sure. That gets really old for players, as long as your career is. So number one, but I never thought about it. I never had any ambition to do this or get into what I eventually did. One day I was skating guys and training guys and stuff. That was one of the jobs I was doing when I retired. And then I got a call that they needed somebody to fill in and to do a game, like a color on a game on the road. Ironically, went through Buffalo again. So I went to Buffalo and did that and did a couple games as far as that was concerned. And they really didn't have pre and post games at that time. And then I don't know how many years now I've been doing it, Rob, with you. But they were going to come up with a pre and post game kind of situation, more post at the time, and asked me if I wanted to do it. And they had a number of us try out to do it, and they said they were going to pick one guy, and that's how I got involved. I had no idea. I think just get up there and you do it. And it's completely different. The first time you do it, you're sitting there and realizing you don't want to critique your buddies. We know what it's like to be when you're playing a game and somebody's ripping into what you did or what your stats or what mistake. Did you really need to run that guy and get a 5-minute major? Did you really need to do this? I didn't want to be that guy that was busting on guys. And but you had to talk to be credible. You had to make a point. And I think I try and, Rob, with you, which has been wonderful all the years we did it together. I think we tried to do that without being, so like harsh. We're players, Steve. If I'm critiquing you, that if I come across you, you're not going to, we understand. I think I've tried to go about the business that way.
Empathetic but fair.
Yeah. I think it's a big thing. I've been through it on other sides, and you like to be that way. But I never knew I'd do it, but got into it, and doing it here for the Penguins all these years has been wonderful. I enjoy it every night.
Do you see anything differently from this perspective than from a player?
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up in what Jay's talking about. It's easy to get caught up in the game looks a lot easier.
It sure does.
TV. And everybody who plays will tell you that it looks a lot easier on TV. I don't think hockey looks easier on TV. You hit the puck so fast, I don't understand how anybody knows where it is. But in baseball, it's a game where, for some reason, pitches don't translate on TV very well. You go stand in a box against a Clayton Kershaw curveball, you're not going to get anywhere near hitting it. But you watch it on TV and it looks like this big loopy thing that, why don't you just sit on it and wait? You're a major league hitter. It's like, well, it's obviously not that easy. Otherwise I would. And so I try to do the same thing as you. Try to be empathetic but fair is a good way to put it. You talk about the facts of what's going on, what is happening on the field without trying to cause detriment to a person's reputation or say things like they shouldn't be here or they're not good enough, things like that. That's opinion. That's rhetoric speak that doesn't really have any place, I think. You want to talk about what's actually going on, right? That's what I try to do as best I can. I hope people don't hate me.
Yeah.
But no, you guys both phenomenal job, both of you guys. It's been a joy working with you both. By the way, I had to talk about criticizing games. I had an off and on girlfriend in high school, and this was in the 80s, and she asked me, she's like, why do you guys always run into the pile? I was like, well, that's because gee, I don't know why we always run into the pile. Then a couple years later, spread offenses came out. You know, they're running the ball. I'm like, oh, she was onto something.
Yeah.
As a fan.
Right.
So, what is your view on the general state of baseball right now, where it sits? Do you like the game? Do you like the way it's going? By the way, I love the pitch clock.
It's best.
Unbelievably good invention. I think we're going to see automatic balls and strikes maybe coming, a challenge system, which I would like. We've seen Henry Davis rung up on a couple of very questionable calls at very big moments in the game.
Yeah.
And so one of the things for fans that aren't used to it in the minor leagues, it's kind of like when you watch the U.S. Open in tennis, where they can quickly, somebody can challenge a call. They'll show it up on the big screen. The fans start clapping. It becomes a thing. Like, it's part of the enjoyment of it, but it's quick. It's over in seconds. They do the same thing in the minor leagues. They challenge it. I think they show it up on the scoreboards, and it's momentarily. Yeah. It's not huddling underneath a booth and taking forever. It's quick, and I think it could be kind of fun. It is. Sure, the umpires wouldn't love it, but I think it'd be kind of fun.
I don't see why the umpires would hate it. If you have to think about, probably about 50% of the time they're going to get confirmed and look smart. Right. So it can't be that bad. I don't want to go to full robo umps. I'll say that forever, but I do like a challenge system. The truth is, now we have the technology to know if the call is right or not. And so when you watch it on TV, and I know as a fan just watching the game whether the call is right or not, you got to kind of give the players the opportunity to do the same thing. So I think that I think it's great. The pitch clock's been amazing. I think baseball's in a great place right now. Seeing some of the best superstars that have ever played the game playing right now. We're about to see Shohei Ohtani start pitching again. That's about to start.
He's amazing.
Amazing. And Aaron Judge is doing things that no right-handed hitter's ever done. It's just there are superstars in baseball. I think that when it comes down to entertainment value, it's as high as you could hope for. Baseball is good. I'm curious how things are going to change, because the one thing I would like that I think we will get back to is more contact earlier in at bats, less strikeouts, less walks, faster games. But it seems like it's happening. I mean, it seems like, based on what we've seen this year even, that teams are starting to kind of make that adjustment. I hope that's the direction it continues to go. Same thing with the NBA for me. I don't find it interesting to watch guys just chuck up 35-foot three-pointers. It's just not fun for me as seeing guys go in the paint. And in baseball, it's not as fun for me to see, a bunch of punch-outs as it is to see action on the field at all times.
Is analytics ruining?
I think that's a big part of it, Jay. And I think it's happened in the NBA, too, where they've said, okay, so if you're 50% from two-point range, but you're a little over 35% from three-point range, it doesn't make any difference. You're better off hoisting up three-pointers, which I think takes a lot away. And I think it's the same thing that's happened in baseball. Yep. But I think a sport needs and wants the ability to win in different ways, right? Not just the same formula. Power pitchers who strike out a lot of guys, offenses that walk and hit home runs. That's too much sameness. You need to have some variety there. And I don't know how you can legislate that in. But yeah, analytics have said, doesn't matter if you strike out, and walks are great. And so you have these long at-bats. And I think this is one of the reasons the pitch clock is so good. Long at-bats where there's nothing happening. Yeah. Right? They're just taking pitches or fouling pitches off or not caring if they strike out. So the ball's not being, a ground ball to second. Something can happen. A strikeout, you're just walking back to the dugout. Your bat in your hand.
Yeah. I think that pitch clock, for even fans, the greatest thing. They need to do something like that. Otherwise, they're going to lose.
For the good of the
You're losing. Yes. Yeah, you're losing everything. So I find between the two sports, hockey and baseball, Rob and Steven, is that I think having a challenge, a guy running the bases, and you can tell, like, it's cut and dry. Is it, it's black and white really when you look at replay. Hockey still has the problem of it's so gray. Even when they challenge, you challenge, and people are going, what's the rule? Is that really goaltender interference? Is it not? Is it this? People don't, even when they go to the booth and they go to Toronto, somehow they come back and people think, and 50% agree, 50% don't agree.
It ends up being the same thing.
And they're slowing the game down. Sometimes when they do it in hockey, it slows it down. So I'm in favor of anything that can kind of help out, but you can't slow down the game. And like in the NFL world, like, Jesus, right? We just want to watch a game and move on.
2 feet 2 feet down and a football move. And,
Let me go back and go. What's the quarterback sneak? What was the game? The last game? Last year? Quarterback sneaking. They go, how did he not get the first down when his ball? And they still don't get it right.
Right.
To me,
ball spotting in and out of bounds. Those can be more. But you're right. There are some gray areas.
Yeah.
You hit that guy in the head. Well, did he duck into the hit in hockey? And you're not. The 2 feet down and a football move kind of thing. It used to be 2 feet down.
Right.
I kind of liked when it was just 2 feet down because it was simpler.
Simple. I think when it comes to rules, the best way to do it, the best way to have cut and dry conclusions is simplifying
less
the rules
interpretation.
as much as possible. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's why you can't challenge, a ball bouncing in front of the bag in baseball, because whatever the umpire calls, there's no way to definitively say whether or not it bounced over the bag or not. We just don't have the technology to do that.
Right.
So you can't challenge that, right? But that's one thing that when it comes down to it, that you don't need to challenge.
What do you think of Paul Skenes?
He's okay. I've been saying this since he was in the minor leagues, before he came up, that he's different. We're talking about top 3 pitcher of our generation, and it's not. I don't even think it's a competition. If he stays healthy and plays the way he's playing throughout his career, he'll be the best. And there will be debates for. Depending on, what you appreciate in pitchers of all time, he could be on that list, and it's early, sure, in his career, but you don't see anybody that has what he has at his point. Sometimes you see it when a guy's 30 and they've been playing for 7 years and they've been getting better, but to be able to have the stuff and the 100-mile-an-hour velocity he does, be able to pitch deep in games consistently and never have any kind of, explosions. He just doesn't do that because he has so much of every category of what can make you a good pitcher. Most guys in the big leagues have like one, maybe 1.5. You have really good velocity and you have pretty good stuff. That gives you 10 years in the big leagues as a pitcher. He has the best velocity, the best command, and the best stuff.
Right.
So he is. If you're elite in all 3, he's going to be one of the best.
And see him to say that they let him train any way he'd like to train?
Yes.
Yeah. But he has if he's starting, if he's starting a week from now, he's beginning his preparation. As I get the football out and the different kinds of his dirtbag on. He's incredible. And the other thing I think, too, just to throw it in there, too, is just the way he thinks the game and the way he, the mind, the way it works. And it's sometimes easy to forget that he's just been a pitcher only for 2 years.
Yeah.
He was a catcher at Air Force who was a part-time reliever. Right. And he's, and to have that sort of acumen, that part's going to still grow too. I don't know how much more it can grow, frankly.
Well, that's the exciting part. A lot of guys, when, they get to prospect status in the minor leagues, part of the prospect status is how much growth do they have left to do. And Paul Skenes doesn't, you would think that there's really not any growth left to do. But that's what separates the greats, is that they find that extra 10%. Like, he's already way better than everybody else, but he's still going to get more better than everybody else because that's what he...
Betterer even.
Betterer. Better is.
Hey, boy, I will say, you got to hope you turn around and, they're playing better ball. And, when somebody's that good, we talked about Connor McDavid in the hockey world. He's 10 years in, not winning a championship, eventually falls. You hope that it turns around inside of his
his window.
Rear window, right. Because you can't waste when you have some.
I'm bullish. Of course, I'm always bullish on our Buccos. You know that. Yeah. But I'm bullish. I'm bullish that they're going to get this thing turned around and headed in the right
direction. Doing a great job. Right?
Yeah.
Doing a good job. Yeah.
Stephen, thanks so much for being on with us. Appreciate it.
Having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. I want to thank, once again, U.S. Foods. They'll do whatever it takes to ensure that you reach your goals. Keep on coming back. One Team Media does a fabulous job for us. North Park Lounge here in Cranberry. Again, thanks to Steven Brault. Jay and I want to thank you as well. Thanks for watching this edition of Offset with Kinger and the Big Man.